So yeah, my name's Rachel. I'm from the University of Exeter, but I also work very closely with the Field Studies Council. They fund my PhD. So just a bit of background about maybe how I've ended up here. I've always studied outdoor education. I did a BTEC in outdoor education. I did a foundation degree in outdoor education. I did a BA in education studies. I then did a master's in education for sustainable development. I then worked as education development for a company called Education Through Expeditions. I also lectured at Plymouth University on the education studies degree on the early adventure module. I then worked for Centre for Sustainable Futures at Plymouth University, looking at how higher education can impact sustainable competencies in graduates. And I then worked with Sustrans as an active travel officer, how working with schools to get more and more young people cycling or walking to school. And as well as that, I've also taught windsurfing, climbing, canoeing and kayaking in loads of different countries across Europe. So I've seen people experience the environment in many different ways, which has been quite interesting. It was only a few months ago I was up on Dartmoor with some friends, and I was basking in the glory of Dartmoor, and I was feeling wonderful. But one of my friends was running around behind me screaming about how much he hated nature. I think he was being chased by flies or something like that. It was maybe quite tongue-in-cheek, but we were clearly having a very different experience at that time. So what was causing that different experience, and is this something that we need to look into? Equally, when I was doing some data collection, this was only last week, I had a group of students with me, and we were sat around the table discussing their experience. And on one side of the table, we had some children who had an absolutely fantastic time. They had sort of changed their view on everything. But on the other side of the table, some kids who just wanted to go home and go back to Domino's and be able to walk to Sainsbury's. And they were having a huge argument about this between each other. And they sort of looked at me and said, "Oh, sorry, we've just had a huge argument about this. We've had a different experience, and we just don't know why we've had a different experience." And they said, "Sorry, but I was like, it's fine. My dictaphone is rolling, just keep going, it's actually really interesting." So that leads me on to my research. So I'm doing a PhD, and I'm currently still doing this. So this isn't sort of showing you any sort of results, it's just beginning to look at what we can think about, maybe what I can pull out of my research at a later date. So my research is curriculum-based environmental education and the impact on young people's emotions. So when I say curriculum-based here, I mean people coming on courses, and this is residential courses at Field Studies Council, coming on courses, and these courses are to help them pass their exams. It's to help them get the data they need for their coursework, carry out fieldwork, so it's quite an achievement-based environment. So when we put children in the natural environment, and this is based at Slapton, for those that know Slapton, it's incredibly beautiful, probably one of the most beautiful places in Devon, apart from Dartmoor. So they are in an environment that maybe we would think about as quite a therapeutic environment, but they are maybe having to experience it in a very different way. So then how does this impact their emotions and their well-being in a different type of environment to what they might be used to spending time in the natural environment? So a bit of background, I'm sure we all know these things, but there is growing evidence that mental health and well-being issues are rising in young people. Not only this, but these issues are arriving in young people at a younger age. So why is this? One way to think about this is that young people are being increasingly exposed to complex ways of thinking, problems and pressures, particularly in the current climate that we live in. There is lots of things going on that may be impacting upon young people's well-being. As a result, probably why we're all here, there is increasing policy and practice interest in the potential for natural environments to provide human well-being benefits. But we need to understand the processes behind this. So environmental education research has normally placed a focus on environmental attitudes, pro-environmental behaviours and beliefs, and also the cognitive impacts of environmental education. But if we're in a heavily curriculum-based learning environment, what are the effective experiences of young people in these settings? Now, most of this has been explored through theories of restoration and stress reduction. Are you all familiar with these theories? No, so attention restoration theory suggests that when we have to direct our attention on something which is requiring us to really focus, if we're doing that for too long, our ability to concentrate completely depletes, so we can't concentrate anymore. put ourselves in the natural environment, and then that natural environment restores our ability to concentrate. And this theory suggests that the environment has to have 4 properties. So we've got extent, which is the quality of the environment to encourage you to feel immersed in the environment. Compatibility, as an individual, are you able to enjoy that environment? Fascination, can that environment hold your fascination and your concentration without requiring too much effort from you? Can it hold your attention without you having to think about it? And being away, does that environment separate you from your normal stresses of life, which is quite important, I think, when we're thinking about this research. But this also doesn't have to be going away and going for a big walk in a field or a national park. If you're in the office and you can't escape, it can be simply removing yourself from your desk, looking out the window at some trees, or just looking somewhere else. You're not directing your attention on something anymore. So stress reduction theory, natural environments can reduce our stress. Now this is a theory that is based on evolution, and we have evolved to spend time in natural environments, so we have a subconscious feeling of less stress and less negative emotions when we spend time on natural environments. So a lot of research has focused on these 2 theories, and I was beginning to think about, well actually if we put this in an educational environment, can we still use these 2 theories as we're focusing on something very different? And some research has been beginning to explore this. It's beginning to question whether or not we can use these 2 theories across all settings, question the evolutionary impact, especially as young people are growing up in a very changing world where they might not even be experiencing the natural environment until they're an adult. So can we still rely on the evolutionary impacts of these theories? So then I got to thinking, so before I actually carried out my research, I did a pilot study which was actually based upon some of the indicators that Mike was talking about in his previous presentation. So one key indicator which was quite interesting in this survey that was handed out to students that come to Slapton, which was quite surprising, but well, I'm not sure if we can find it surprising or not because it was a curriculum-based environment. But we've got maybe half the group saying that they do feel refreshed and relaxed in that environment, but also half the group saying that they didn't feel refreshed and relaxed in that environment. Now for something like the Field Studies Council, or for somebody like me that thinks, oh, we should all feel refreshed and relaxed in the environment, that was quite interesting. And then we go back to thinking about this group that was having an argument during my data collection. So why is this happening? Why do we have some people in this space that is having a good time and some people clearly not having a good time? So this brings me on to my research. My research aims to explore the emotional impacts of curriculum-based environmental education. First objective, investigate the well-being needs of young people. So we can't do any of this research without first understanding the perspective of young people and what they need for their well-being. We can probably sit here and debate it all day long, but what do the young people actually say? And then this is understanding the processes. So what are the mediators of positive and negative emotions in this particular environment? And then combining these 2 to explore how to effectively frame environmental education to support young people's well-being. So my data collection, as I've mentioned, it's at Field Studies Centre at Slapton Lane. Do you all know the Field Studies Council? Yeah, I can imagine most of you probably do. So they provide environmental education for people of all ages, different courses for everybody, but my research was focusing on GCSE and A-level students. So they're coming on residential trips, some of them staying up to a week, 5 days, 3 days, and they're preparing for their biology and geography coursework. It's quite important to highlight actually that the coursework that they come and do can actually make up 20% of their exam. So there's quite a lot of work they have to do while they're on this visit. So methods, I'll talk about these a bit more in a minute. So focus groups, visual techniques, and participant diaries. So here's some pictures of what they might commonly get up to. We've got pictures of them preparing to do beach profiles, so they spend a long time measuring the beach as a group, and then filling in data forms while they're on the beach. They've got quite a lot to do while they're on the beach. We've got kick sampling for biology, and then they also get taken to places like Totnes and Plymouth for human geography to study how towns have developed and what that might mean. But they do a wide range of these, so this isn't all that they get offered. And a lot of the students are often from London or Birmingham. We get many students that come who have never seen a natural environment before, they've never seen the beach or anything, so they get thrown into this environment and they've got to do quite a lot of work. So, my data collection. So, every student that comes from the school gets invited to fill in a journal. At the beginning of the journal, there's a few questions asking them about how they've previously experienced the natural environment, what they think environmental education is, what well-being means to them, what influences their understanding of the natural environment. So we're building up a picture of their cultural and social background to understand, first of all, what's going on and what they're thinking about. There's then a space in the diary each day for them to fill in how they felt during their stay and what's made them feel that way. Every student gets invited to do that. And then I ask volunteers from the school to come and take part in focus groups. I have one focus group at the beginning of their stay and one focus group at the end of their stay. First focus group, first thing that they do is make a mind map of what well-being means to them and what contributes to their well-being. Secondly, they turn over that piece of paper and then draw a picture or describe an environment that makes them feel well. So we can build up a picture of what is good for young people's well-being and what they really understand of it. They also annotate that picture with why that place is good for them. You might be quite surprised by what some of them draw. Majority of them actually draw a bedroom. So I was quite surprised by that. And it's quite, some of them might say, oh, it's space to just think and be alone. So, do people need that space to reflect a little bit more? Then they put those drawings to the side, and we then have a quick discussion about why their teachers are bringing them here, why do they think their teachers are bringing them here, why they think they are here, what they want to get out of it, how they feel about being there, so how they maybe felt the night before, how they felt when they arrived here, sort of just gathering an understanding of what their perspectives of environmental education are. They then get let loose with the tutors, so I don't see them at all while they're there. I don't really want to influence them in thinking that they're being watched and everything. So at the very end of the stay, I then come back for their last focus group, the same kids. First activity, they draw a timeline of their stay, so day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, however long they're there. Annotate that timeline with how they felt and what's made them feel that way, so it's slightly similar to their diaries, but what we can see is we get a nice timeline of how their feelings might have fluctuated throughout their stay. And then all of that information gets numbered in relation to the participant, so I can have quite a lot of data for one individual student, so we can see what's going on with each individual student. So what can I begin to look at? So one really interesting thing I thought was coming out of this is why do they think the teachers are bringing them on these trips? The majority of the students, it's the first day, they're not that talkative anyway, but they kind of sit back with their arms folded and say, oh, let's just pass our exams, isn't it? Most of them, sometimes they do say, actually, after the teachers can't be bothered to teach us anymore. So the teachers get a break. The windows are all closed, so they will often say things that they might not say and sort of boot the teachers out of the focus group so nobody is listening apart from me. So yeah, they're quite aware that the teachers are maybe only bringing them to pass exams, but if you speak to teachers, the teachers often say something slightly different to me, so where are they getting this idea from? And then I swing the question around as to what do they want to get from their stay? Again, oh yeah, well, we could have some fun, but we just really need to focus on our exams and our coursework. And I find that quite interesting. They're coming to this lovely environment, but all they're focusing on is their work. So is the value in this environment being placed on meeting curriculum needs? The learning environment, and equally any environment, is more than just the physical space. It includes everything that's happening within that space, the way we're communicating with each other, the way people feel. More than just the physical space is what we need to be focusing on here. So what is happening within that space and everything that's happening? So how are these young people perceiving that environment, and how does that relate to an emotional outcome? So one lens we could begin to look at this through is the capabilities approach, where well-being is understood in terms of people's functionings and capabilities. So the opportunities to be and do what they have reason to value. So in this sense, in this setting, are they valuing their curriculum outcomes and meeting their learning needs? And is that what they need to do to be able to reach their positive emotional effect? And well-being is achieved as a result of the freedom and agency to achieve goals related to that particular setting and context. And then it's underpinned by the notion that social arrangements should consider people's capabilities and expand upon them. So one way I've been looking at this is the way we frame outdoor experiences to people, not just in a curriculum-based environmental education, then changes what they're expecting from that setting and what they value in that setting, and whether or not those expectations and values are met, then links to their emotional outcome. So I could go down many streams, but this is one way I've just been focusing on it. So again, I haven't done too much data analysis yet because I'm still doing data collection, so I will have a lot more to add to this. So what am I doing next? So my data collection finishes in November. I will have worked with over 250 students from all over the UK. Although actually at Slapton at the moment I've got a group from Ghana, which is also quite interesting, but the majority of them are from the UK. Data analysis will then begin, which I'm not really looking forward to because there's a lot of data. Consider the key emotional theories in relation to the data. So I've already introduced the capabilities approach. We've got control value theory, which is looking at in academic achievement-based environments, is that how it's being framed? So should we look at environmental education purely in an academic sense to influence emotions? And then the most important thing for me to get out of this really is then working with the Field Studies Council to implement the findings into practice so that we can ensure that the Field Studies Council are creating an environment that is having a positive effect on people's emotions in an education-based environment.